here. I'm here today to do my top 5 most surprising reads of 2020. This list isn't necessarily filled with books that were my favorites, because to be quite frank, this year, the books that were my favorites are ones I already expected to love, so they weren't necessarily surprising. But there are a few here that ended up falling kind of into the 4-star category. So I really did like them quite a bit, but they just didn't make that top 10 list. The first of this is One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus. It's a YA mystery thriller, and I'd heard kind of very mixed reviews from it, and from a few people that they didn't like it, and they're people whose taste usually aligns with my own when it comes to these kinds of books. And while it still wasn't my favorite, I liked it more than I expected based on those reviews. And I really enjoyed the characters here because it was characters that fit a specific stereotype, but were breaking out of them, and that's kind of a trope I really, really enjoy reading. The second most surprising read of the year for me was Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. This is one that I read very recently, and the reason that it caught me by surprise so much is I have really, really, really been struggling with YA fantasy this year, and I think I'm pretty sure this is YA fantasy. They're still reasonably new adults at the very least. And I've really been struggling with YA fantasy just because of the age difference between myself and the main characters. I'm just outside the intended audience, so I've really, really been struggling with it this last year. I think I'm going to finally kind of call it and only read sequels to the ones I've been enjoying. And but with Black Sun specifically, I really liked the premise. I liked the lore they were pulling from. I loved the writing, and the characters were really interesting. It just was a very well-rounded book. My third most surprising read is The Overdue Life of Amy Byler by Kelly Harms. The reason this one makes the list is I haven't read much contemporary fiction about women who are kind of approaching middle age and are getting a second chance, so to speak, at how their life is set up. The first one of like this that I read, I did not like. And so I was a little concerned about how this would go. The only thing that I was super pumped about is that she loved books. So that's the connection I was banking on, and it ended up just moving beyond that. I ended up really enjoying Amy Byler, who's the main character, quite a bit. That'll take me to my fourth most surprising read, and that would be Paper Menagerie and Other Stories by Ken Liu. And I had listened to a few of these short stories on LeVar Burton Reads, his book, the podcast where he reads adult short stories. It's reminiscent of Reading Rainbow, which I had watched a little bit growing up, or at least reruns of it growing up. Because of that, I knew I liked and loved, 2 or 3 stories in this book, and there were many more than that in here. However, what did surprise me is I like and or loved all of the stories. I think most of them were 5-star reads for me, and that caught me by surprise. And because it was just every short story I read in there was amazing. And usually when I get stuff like that, I like, most of them, but not all of them. But here I just loved all of them. So I was super pumped and just completely shocked, to be honest. And then my fifth and final most surprising read is My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. It's considered contemporary fiction, and I was really shocked at how it gripped me. That being said, the first chapter was a little hard for me to read, and that first kind of chapter or two, I was concerned that the book was going to be overhyped, and I was really worried about how it was going to play out. I had heard a couple spoiler-free reviews of it, so I knew the general direction of the book, but getting there, I was a little concerned. But it ended up being very gripping, very well written. It didn't romanticize the situation, and when it did, it kind of showed why it was just the character romanticizing the situation and not necessarily presenting it as a good thing. So while I was worried it was overhyped, the farther I got into it, the more I realized I didn't think it was overhyped. It was just a fear that didn't end up coming to fruition. I would recommend this book to people who really enjoy hard-hitting contemporaries. It's probably the only book I would just recommend to people who enjoy the kind of genre that it lines up with. Everything else I feel is a little bit more niche. I would need to know people a little bit better to just recommend them outright. And with that, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.